You just got good news, a promotion, a personal achievement, a moment you should be proud of. But your first unfiltered thought isn't joy. It's a cold spike of anxiety. You immediately think, what will my mother say? Or, is this good enough for my father? You start planning how to deliver the news to them, how to manage their reaction, bracing for the subtle critique, the backhanded compliment, or the way they'll somehow make your achievement about them. If this scenario feels uncomfortably familiar, you may be one of the millions of adults living with the invisible psychological fallout of a narcissistic parent. This isn't just about having a strict or difficult childhood. It's about being raised in a psychological environment that fundamentally alters your internal wiring. An environment where love isn't a given, but a transaction. Today, we are not just listing traits. We are pulling back the curtain on the psychological mechanisms at play. We will explore the hidden psychological truth about being raised by a narcissist and dissect the 7 core psychological scars that shape the adult child's mind. Let's begin. First, we must clarify what we mean by a narcissistic parent. We are not talking about simple vanity or high self-esteem. We are talking about individuals who, often due to their own deep-seated trauma, exhibit traits of narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. The core of this is a profound lack of empathy, an insatiable need for admiration, a deep-seated sense of entitlement, and most critically for a child, the view that their children are not separate individuals, but extensions of themselves. This creates the central conflict of the narcissistic family. The child's fundamental need for unconditional love and validation clashes directly with the parent's fundamental need for unconditional admiration and validation. The child's needs will always lose. To survive, the child's psyche must adapt. It does so through several toxic mechanisms. First, the mechanism of conditional love. The child quickly learns that love and attention are not free. They are commodities to be earned. This creates the golden child, the one who earns love by succeeding, by being perfect, by reflecting glory onto the parent. Their achievements are not their achievements, they are the parents'. Second, the mechanism of the scapegoat. One child is often designated to carry all the parents' negative projections. This child is the problem, the difficult one, the failure. Why? Because the narcissist cannot process their own insecurity, shame, or failure. They must expel these feelings and project them onto a target. The scapegoat becomes the family's emotional dumping ground, blamed for everything that goes wrong. And third, the most insidious mechanism, gaslighting. Gaslighting is the systematic denial of a child's reality. When the child says, "You hurt my feelings," the parent responds, "No, I didn't. You're too sensitive." When the child remembers an event, the parent says, "That never happened. You're making it up." This is not a simple disagreement. It is a psychological attack. It teaches the child, "You cannot trust your own mind. You cannot trust your own feelings. My reality is the only reality." This psychological framework is the soil in which the 7 scars of the adult child take root. We are about to go deep into the 7 core scars, and if this content is already resonating with you, it shows you are on a path of seeking understanding. We create in-depth explainers like this every week to help you make sense of complex psychological topics. If you find this valuable, please take a moment to subscribe and hit the bell icon. It's a small click, but it ensures you won't miss our future investigations into the human mind. These adaptations don't disappear when the child turns 18. They become a permanent part of their psychological architecture, affecting every decision and relationship. Scar? Number 1. Identity erosion. The The first and most foundational scar is a profound erosion of the self. A child builds their identity by being seen, heard, and validated as a separate person. The child of a narcissist is never seen as separate. They are a tool, a mirror, an accessory. Their true self, their genuine interests, feelings, and thoughts is irrelevant, or worse, an inconvenience to the parent. So, the child represses it. They learn to perform. Their entire personality becomes reactive. They become who the parent needs them to be. Here is the psychological why. For a child, attachment to the caregiver is a matter of literal survival. If being myself risks abandonment or rage from that caregiver, the child's brain will choose performance over authenticity every single time. As adults, this manifests as a chronic feeling of emptiness or being fake. They don't know what they truly want, like, or believe. They are masters at mirroring others, but they feel hollow inside, having never been allowed to build a core identity of their own. Scar number 2, the chronic inner critic. The second scar is the voice in their head. It is not their own. It is the voice of the narcissistic parent, internalized and automated. In the narcissistic home, the child is subjected to a constant stream of criticism, judgment, and impossibly high standards. Why did you get an A and not an A+? Your hair looks messy. Don't embarrass me. The psychological why is twofold. First, the parent projects their own relentless self-loathing onto the child. Second, the child's brain internalizes this voice as a survival tactic. It sounds counterintuitive, but the child's psyche thinks, if I can criticize myself first, if I can find all my own flaws before they do, maybe I can preempt the attack. Maybe I can finally be perfect and earn their love. This voice never leaves. As an adult, it becomes a relentless inner critic. It fuels debilitating imposter syndrome. Every success is a fluke. Every compliment is a lie. They live in a state of chronic self-doubt, never feeling good enough because the goalpost was designed to be permanently out of reach. Scar number 3, pathological echoism. You have heard of narcissism, but have you heard of its tragic opposite, echoism? Named after the nymph Echo, who was cursed to only repeat the words of others. An echoist is someone who is terrified of having needs. This scar is born from a childhood where their needs were treated as a burden. Crying was manipulative. Having an opinion was disrespectful. Needing comfort was weak. The psychological why, the child learns a devastating equation. My needs are a problem. To be loved, I must be silent. I must take up no space. As adults, echoists are magnets for other narcissists. They are consummate people pleasers, unable to say no. They are terrified of being a burden in their friendships and relationships. They are so focused on meeting the needs of others that they often don't even know what their own needs are. They have become a perfect, accommodating echo. Scar number 4, pervasive guilt and toxic shame. The fourth scar is the heavy cloak of guilt and shame. It's vital to understand the difference. Guilt says, I did something bad. Toxic shame, however, says, I am something bad. The narcissistic parent, especially with the scapegoat child, infuses the child with toxic shame. The child is not told they are the problem, they become the problem. They are responsible for the parent's moods, the family's tension, the parent's unhappiness. The psychological why is a desperate bid for control. A child's mind cannot comprehend the idea that their caregiver, their source of life, is flawed, unstable, or cruel. That is too terrifying. It is psychologically safer for the child to believe, it must be my fault. If it's my fault, then maybe I can fix it. If I can just be better, be quieter, be perfect, then they will be happy, and then they will love me. This becomes a lifelong burden. The adult child feels a pervasive, free-floating guilt. They apologize for existing. They feel responsible for everyone's emotions, becoming the designated peacemaker in every group, exhausted by the weight of a shame that was never theirs to carry. Scar number 5. Disintegrated boundaries. In a narcissistic family, boundaries are not just discouraged. They are treated as a declaration of war. A child's attempt to have privacy, a closed door, a private diary, a personal thought is seen by the narcissistic parent as an act of profound betrayal. Why are you locking me out? What are you hiding? The parent reads the diary, goes through the child's phone, and emotionally invades every internal space. The psychological why is simple: control. The parent sees the child as an extension of themselves. A boundary, by definition, is where you end and I begin. To the narcissist, this separation is a terrifying threat to their control and their sense of self. As a result, the adult child has a completely broken boundary system. They either have porous boundaries, letting others walk all over them, unable to recognize or stop mistreatment because it feels normal, or they develop rigid boundaries, massive, unyielding walls. They trust no one, let no one in, and isolate themselves to finally feel safe. For them, there is no healthy middle ground. Scar number 6. Complex PTSD, CPTSD. When we hear PTSD, we think of a single, horrific event, like a car crash or a war zone. But CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, is different. It is the result of repeated, prolonged trauma where the victim has no means of escape. The narcissistic home is that environment. It is not one bad fight. It is 18 years of walking on eggshells. It is a childhood of sustained psychological and emotional threat. The home, which should be a safe haven, is the source of the danger. The psychological why, the child's nervous system, is in a constant state of fight, flight, or freeze. They become hypervigilant, constantly scanning the room, reading the parent's micro-expressions, listening to the sound of their footsteps, always trying to predict the next explosion. This hypervigilance becomes their default setting. As adults, they are diagnosed with anxiety or depression, but the root is often CPTSD. They are easily startled, suffer from emotional flashbacks, where a small trigger brings back all the terror of their childhood, and they feel a deep, pervasive sense of being unsafe in the world, even when they are perfectly secure. Scar number 7. The repetition compulsion. The final scar is perhaps the most tragic: the unconscious drive to repeat the past. Adult children of narcissists will often, to their own horror, find themselves in relationships with other narcissists. They date controlling bosses, emotionally unavailable partners, or fixer-upper friends. Why would someone who endured this once ever choose it again? The psychological why is called repetition compulsion. Sigmund Freud first identified this. The psyche is drawn not to what is healthy, but to what is familiar. The chaos of a relationship with a narcissist feels like home. But there is a deeper, more heartbreaking reason. A part of the adult child's psyche is still that little boy or girl desperately trying to win the love they never got. They unconsciously think, this person is just like my father. If I can make this person love me, if I can finally be good enough for them, it will retroactively heal that original wound. I can finally prove that I am worthy of love. This, of course, is a trap. The wound cannot be healed by the same dynamic that created it. It only leads to more pain, reinforcing the toxic shame that it was their fault all along. If you recognize yourself in this description, you are not alone, and you are not broken. These scars are not a life sentence. They are the devastatingly clever survival mechanisms that your brilliant young mind created to endure the unendurable. Healing, then, is not about getting over it. It is about a conscious process of psychological unpacking. It starts with acknowledgement. The hardest step is to look back and name what happened. It was not normal, it was abusive, and it was not your fault. Next is grieving. You must grieve the parent you deserved but never had. You must grieve the childhood you were denied. This grief is the space where healing begins. From there, you begin the work of reparenting. You must learn to give yourself the validation, compassion, and unconditional love that you were never given. This means silencing that inner critic and replacing it with a new voice, your own. A voice that says, "You are good enough. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to be here." This journey is often too difficult to do alone. Seeking therapy from a professional who specifically understands narcissistic abuse is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate act of self-preservation. The hidden truth about being raised by a narcissist is that it creates a deep internal prison. But by understanding the complex psychology of how that prison was built, you also find the key. Your identity was not destroyed, it was just buried. Your nervous system is not broken, it is just wounded. You are not an echo. You are a complete person, and it is time to learn how to hear your own voice. This is a heavy topic, and these conversations are crucial. So many people suffer in silence, believing they are alone in this. To help break that silence, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Which of these psychological scars resonated most deeply with you? Sharing your story can be a powerful step for yourself and an even more powerful act of validation for someone else reading. And, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We are building a community dedicated to understanding ourselves and the world. Thank you for watching.